Welcome back to the Loose Nut Printing channel, and in this video, as you can see, we're printing something a little out of the norm. We're printing a model tank, and unfortunately I didn't get all the time lapses for you guys since I've been still fighting a technical issue with my printer. But hopefully I think I might have been able to figure out my printer's issue and might be able to finally get more time lapses of builds. But with all the parts printed, now we can take a boo at them. You can see this is the right hand side track. Fairly nice detail in these. This is the top hull. Luckily enough, this file was already cut up and ready to be printed. They are originally a 1/100th scale, and I've upsized them to be roughly 1/60th. They're 60% over the original size they were. There, and then so with them all printed out, all it is super glue that holds them together. Very simple. You can see me here using just a piece of aluminum L channel to make sure that the two sides are held together. Once I've seen that the two pieces sit together really nicely, I just start putting down some glue in a couple of spots just to make sure that it'll hold it, but not too close to the turret ring, because I have done that a few times where I've gone a little crazy with the glue and gone too close, and I've almost glued the turret to the hull. Not a fun time. But now with the glue down, we can just simply get the two pieces lined up. Once the pieces are lined up, squeeze the crap out of her, and that's the main hull body put together. Then we can simply move on to the right hand track. Same thing as the hull, just put some lines of glue down, and then here I just do the top edge, try to match that up as best as I can. You'll never truly get them 100% unless they're got a lot of small interlocking pieces inside them, but that's a lot of precision on something where not really needed. And the same thing, just give it a good squeeze, and super glue holds this stuff together really well. Been doing the super glue method for a couple of years now with these tanks, and none of them have ever come apart. And same thing for the other side. A little glue along each edge, or along it, and line up the edges and plop her on. And then we can get a good idea of what this tank looks like put together instead of seeing it on the screen. And there we go. Make sure it's lined up. Never truly can get it lined up, but you always try to get 100% because you know it's a special gift for someone, and you want it to be 100% no matter what. And you kind of get frustrated when it isn't perfect. And right there, just double checking that I did get the hull or the tracks glued on level, and not perfect, but it will precisely do. And now getting the turret put together. This pre-cut setup that this gentleman did, can't remember the person's screen name, but I'll have a link to the file. Did a really nice job on the turret where it interlocks together. Done a few of these where the turret is not interlocking and it makes it a little bit of trouble. Been doing quite a few different tanks. I've done Canadian, German, American, and Russian so far for my dad, all through different eras. He's got World War II to modern, and this tank here is actually kind of the first one out of his little set he has that actually has a rotating cupola with machine gun. Kind of a cool feature on this one, and big reason why I went with it. Was like, never seen that on one of the scale little model tanks where the actual cupola can rotate separate from the actual turret, and you can see it here how it rotates. Pretty cool. Now with the tank completely all glued together, we can start laying some primer on it. The one I prefer to use is Vallejo. I've been using this since pretty much day one of doing these tanks, and the results from the colors, never ever have been upset about it. if there's ever been an issue, it's always been an error issue. So just simply mixing up some of the primer here, and I use airbrush thinner, airbrush flow improver, and then retarding medium. If you don't use the retarding medium, you'll find that the paint or primer you're spraying actually will dry, and you'll start getting clogging, and just turns it into a complete nightmare. So just want to get an even coat of primer onto the top of the tank first, and then put it off to the side and do the turret. Didn't show all the painting, didn't want to bore you guys with it, too much of the painting side of things. But that's pretty much the process I do, is get the top side of the tank nice and primed first, because that's going to be the area you see most often. Try to get a nice coat of primer on there. Then I moved on to doing the turret, and then I moved on to doing the cupola. Then moved back to the hull, got the bottom of the hull primed up, and then gave everything a nice even couple coats. With all the coats on there, the primer, gave it a day and a half. Then I now can move on to putting the country's color on. And this is going to be US forest green, since this is an Abram M1A1. And every time I do one of these tanks for my dad, I try to strive to do the right colors of whatever the country that tank is from. And since it's an American tank, I'm trying to do the right colors. And when doing a little bit of research to figure out which colors to use, I found out that the American, US Army I should say, switched from using OD green during, I do believe it was the 50s, 60s, to forest green, and that's what I'm using here. And I've done other tanks in the past where using the proper colors. So simple enough. We just mixed up the colors like we did with the primer, and just started laying it down. And here you can see I'm doing it in reverse of the primer. Here I'm doing actually the base first, and then I'm going to move on to the top, because then this allows me to actually get a good hold onto the tank. I can get a good nice coat, because the bottom of the tank you're not going to see that much. So if the paint gets a little bumped or nudged on the bottom, not so much major. Then I moved on to doing the cupola, so then it could dry a small surface area, didn't need much paint, and somehow I did miss a few spots on something so small. Murphy's Law. No, if I ever meet someone named Murphy, that could be a bad day for them. But now with all the paint soaking on that cupola, we could move on to the turret. And it's one of those ones where you simply take each part, simply start laying paint down until you're happy with the layer. You don't want to get it on there to the point where it's running. You just want it on there just enough to have a good coat. And the benefit of using the Vallejo paints that I do use, they have self-leveling built into them, where it just gives you such a gorgeous coat every time if you don't overdo it. Big thing, don't overdo it, and the paint will reward you with a gorgeous paint. So now with everything in a good coat of paint, nice and wet, we can just let this sit for a while and dry up. And now after a few days here, you can see we got a good coat of base color on there, where around the turret post doesn't really matter because you're not going to see that. That's going to be in the hull. But we can take a good look at that. Cupola looks like she got a good coat of paint. And the main hull, same thing. Did notice there was a few small spots on the bottom, like I said, and the front. The front's more important than the bottom that I had to touch up. Nothing major. But overall, pretty happy with the paint. A little light in some spots, but nothing really major. Easy enough to touch up. Those were the colors I used to make the color for the track. Didn't get any of the track painting done or caught on camera just because I was in a rush when I did that one that day. Now, with basically all the tank painted, we can throw a clear coat on. and that will lock all the paint in, and simply using the Vallejo satin, every product for the painting process has always been a Vallejo product for this. It's not wise to mix different companies because you can have reactions happen and you don't want a project to be binned because of that. So it's just best practice to stay with the same company unless you know that one company can play fair with another company and type thing. If you know that, then good on you and go for it. But since I don't, I'm just sticking with what I know and only using Vallejo. And now with everything mixed up here, we can get this bad boy thrown into the airbrush and get some clear coat thrown onto this. And throwing clear coat on is probably the trickiest one out of everything, because you can't see where it's going on unless you have a couple of lights shining on it, your project you're painting, and you're holding it in the right light. Then you can start seeing where the primer or the clear coat's on. But with the clear coat on and dried, we got a very gorgeous end product. And I hopefully you are happy with this, Pops. Happy birthday. And well, this is all I have for you this week, guys. And see you later. Like and subscribe. Have a good one.